approximately 3 months of training, sir.
And the 47 days?
That is for everyone that hasn't, who's never worked for ICE, sir. So you could have someone that's a cap officer. They would not have to go through for when it comes to defensive tactics, firearms, et cetera. They would go through the rigorous immigration training, which unfortunately immigration law is just as confusing and long as tax code ensure that we devote that extensive time to.
Thank you so much. But
Yes, sir.
would you provide the committee with
Yes, sir. We will provide.
All of us understand it's 47 days.
Yes, sir. We will provide
You're
you
telling us it's 3 months.
from the beginning, sir. I'm on pre-employment training to the
Thank
OJT program afterwards. But we will be with the full each breakdown.
For Mr. Scott, over the past several weeks, the president has comments regarding the midterm election. The president has urged my Republican colleague in Congress to nationalize elections. Now, are you involved in any planning on guarding precincts in this country as of today? Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Mr. Lyon?
No, sir.
So there's no information, you're not asked to start deploying people for areas anywhere?
No, sir.
Well, thank you. Mr. Lyons, I'll get it in writing, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to follow your questions on this.
Gentleman yields back. Thank you, Ranking Member. I now recognize Texas, Mr. McCall, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A decade ago when I chaired this, Thompson and I passed a bill to authorize ICE into law. It was a bipartisan. It passed the House overwhelmingly, both Republican and Democrat. Here we are. The Dems have called to abolish ICE. Now they're trying to shut it down. In that 10 years, let's go back to the last 4 to 5 years in this country and at the border. As someone who lives in the border state of Texas, we saw the most dangerous, wide open scene in my 22 years in Congress. 10 to 12, that's what we know about. I think it's far greater, came into this country. Many of them dangerous, violent, some known or suspected terrorists, which I find extremely dangerous. That's why I'm impeachment manager for Mayorkas, because he violated federal law. The federal statute says, as a federal prosecutor, I know this, shall detain aggravated felons. What did Mayorkas do? He told us that's discretionary. You can release them. Result, we had tens of thousands of aggravated felons left the streets of America to roam freely. Not to mention the human and sex trafficking of children. Mr. Lyons, as you pointed out. So what is the administration trying to do? They're trying to remove a public safety threat from the United States of America. That is their job. Restoring public safety should be the #1 priority. And one of the problems here, as I examine it, is that Minneapolis is a sanctuary city. What does that mean? That means that it's a magnet for illegal. They're protected in a situation because state and locals will not cooperate with federal law enforcement. In fact, Mr. Lyons, is it not true that they were not honoring ICE detainers that were put on felons in prison so that you could remove them from the United States?
That is correct, sir. The detainees were not honored at the local level in Minneapolis.
This is the #1 mission. In addition, the rhetoric on the left led to over 1,000% increase in assaults on officers, an increase of over 8,000 of death threats to them. All this created a perfect storm for officers being thrown into this situation. And then Agent Bavir came into the picture, and I would argue, in fairness, that he escalated the situation, but that was handled. Your officers are not trained to effectuate crowd control. They are to move in surgically, go in and remove these dangerous, violent criminals from the United States of America. I've called for de-escalation after the 2 deaths, the 2 shootings that took place. I believe that the patrol should be done at the border rather than in the major cities of the United States. So when the president to remove Agent Bovino and put in Tom Homan, who I've known for years, a professional, law enforcement professional, I commended the president. And what has been done since Homan came into the job? We now have targeted law enforcement operations. He is returning to the original of ICE. He is working with state and locals to do the crowd control. He is getting them to ICE detainers. He is also getting the body cameras put on them. And the roving patrol, in his words to me, should be done at the border, not in major cities. My question to you, Mr. Lyons, are his operations in Minneapolis now bringing the situation under control?
So we've seen a de-escalation in the FAT tests. While they still go on, have subsided, and ICE has been allowed to do their targeted, intelligence-driven enforcement operation. Tonight, local authorities arrested 54 protests at the local level where ICE officers did not have to be engaged in that.
My final question to you, do you believe the model that Mr. Homan is now setting in Minneapolis should be a model for the nation?
Gentleman's time is
If I could allow the witness to answer.
I understand that, but I'm holding.
I'd
it
like
for
on the
5 minutes.
record an answer. Do you agree that Mr. Homan's model is one for the nation?
Gentleman's time has expired.
Yes or no?
I now recognize the gentleman from California, Orwell, for 5 minutes.
A couple nights ago, I met with a woman who works as a cashier at a grocery store, and I told her I was coming to see you, Mr. Lyons, and she said, will you ask him, and she didn't want to give her name, but she said, when I get off my shift around midnight and I walk through the parking lot to my car, she said, if an identified van and gets out wearing all black and their face is covered and they don't have any identification and they ask me to get into the van, how do I know who they are? How does she know, Mr. Lyons? How does she know if they're an ICE agent or bad guys?
Have identifiable placards on their uniforms as well as their badges representative. But you won't see ICE agents rolling through just snatching someone up. ICE does intelligence-driven, targeted enforcement operations.
Well, Mr. Homan and others have said they target individuals based on the color of their skin and the accent that they speak, and that's why people are running through the fields and factories where they work. Lyons, last year you said in Phoenix at the Border Security Expo that you wanted to see a deportation process that was like, quote, Amazon, but with human beings. Mr. Lyons, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a mom 3 times in the face?
None, sir, but you're also...
It's the square root of 0, that's right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but if we're going to go down that route of my comment, I did say that comment. However, that comment was taken out. If you go back and watch I did say that we need to be more efficient when it comes to individuals from the United States because ICE doesn't detain punitively. We detain to remove. I don't want to see people in custody. At the end of my statement, again, to your point, it was a industry day for AI and efficiencies, but I did say at the end, human beings, so we can't be like them.
And speaking
That's
of
the key part that you're leaving out.
Well, speaking of human beings, how many times has Amazon Prime 10 times in the back?
None.
How many times has Amazon Prime dragged a woman out of her car by her hair and then dragged her down the street? How many ICE agents have been fired for their conduct under your leadership?
Sir, I can get you that data to you.
Is it more than one?
I'm not going to speak about personnel actions, but I'll get you that data.
Can you tell us if, at least, God, I hope at least one person has been fired for the operations have begun? Are you telling us you can't even say one person's been fired?
I'm not going to talk about personnel actions, but we will get back to you.
But two people have been killed so far. Is that right? A nurse named Preddy and a two people have been killed so far.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lyons, will you apologize to the family for being called a domestic terrorist by the president and his leadership?
No, sir.
Why not?
Sir, I welcome the opportunity to speak to the family in private, but I'm not going to comment on any active investigation.
Is she a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I'm not going to comment on the investigation. And the president and Secretary Noem are elected officials. That's their right to their comments. But as career law enforcement, we won't speak to any.
Do you agree with their comments?
Sir, I'm not going to go ahead and talk investigation.
Will you apologize to the family of Alex Preddy for also being called a domestic terrorist?
Sir, again, I'm going to investigation.
Mr. Lyons, your staying to lead is a decision.
Sir, I'm sorry. Could you repeat
Your
that?
on to lead ICE is a decision. And I've read your background. You have a decorated career. You've served the military. You are what I would call otherwise employable. I think most people would agree this is not the only job you can get. But since you've been on this job, women have been dragged by their hair through our streets. A 6-year-old child battling stage 4 cancer deported. And it turns out he was a U.S. citizen. People are running through the fields where they work. People who've gone to the streets as allies have been shot and publicly executed. It's a decision at this point. And considering your honor in the past and the dishonorable acts who have worked for you have conducted, and the disgraceful statements that the leadership above you said, have a decision. Will you stand with the kids who you're supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
Why not?
That you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when him and ran from
Gentlemen's
law enforcement.
time has expired.
You never should have gone
Gentlemen's
into
time
custody.
has expired. Now, as a gentleman from Mississippi,
Yield
Mr. Guest for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we stand on the second Democrat shutdown of the United States Department of Homeland Security just within the last 90 days. The Department of Homeland Security employs 260,000 men and women across agencies. Those agencies include 63,000 women who work for CBP, 60 work for TSA, 22,000 for FEMA, 8,000 who works for USCIS, almost 50,000 civilian and military employees with the United States Coast Guard, 7,800 Secret Service employees, 2,500 CISA employees, 1,000 agents and analysts with the Department of Homeland Security investigation who perform a function, a crucial function to protect and serve the country. This government shutdown, led by my friends on the Democrat side of the aisle, will leave us safe. Don't just take my word for it. Let's look at the words of the Biden administration. Biden and Kamala Harris, Department of Homeland Security, in September of 2023, as they faced a potential government shutdown, they issued a fact sheet. That fact sheet is entitled "The Impact Shutdown on the DHS Workforce." This fact sheet says this. It says DHS workforce is comprised of extraordinary public servants in the nation. It goes on to say any lapse in federal funding would disrupt this vital work, leaving Americans as a result. Those working without pay include enforcement, conducting such acts as seizing narcotics like fentanyl, combating child exploitation and child predators, identifying and arresting human, responding to natural disasters, preventing cyber attacks, and protecting government leaders. And so I ask you, gentlemen, as we are once again on the verge of a shutdown of the Department of Homeland Homeland Security. If the Democrats take us to the edge, if they refuse, if once again the men and women who serve under your leadership, if they are once again not paid, I ask you, how will that impact our nation? Will America be more safe, or will America be if we are once again led into a government shutdown by the Democrat Party? Mr. Scott.
I believe consistency and seeing support from the leadership of on both sides of this building and the president is very important to border security. Rhetoric and the back and forth, the politicizing of law enforcement in general detracts from the general morale of our personnel.
Is it not important that we pay the men under your command?
It's critically important.
And in a government shutdown, the bills, do they not? The bills continue to accrue. And the deployment of technology ceases in many cases, and America becomes less safe. Would you agree with that statement?
I would agree. America becomes less.
Edlow, what about you?
Well, Congressman, as I'm sure you're aware, USCIS is a little different in that we are fee-funded. So during a the men and women working for USCIS continue to be paid. However, in terms of our screening and vetting enterprises, as well as everything else we do, we have formed very, very strong working relationships with the other components, and that's critical for us to be able to do our work. We may be there able to continue without our paid, and with them being furloughed, it's going to make America significantly less safe.
And Mr. Lyon.
It will have a great impact, especially on the Homeland Security task forces and the men and women that are focused on the transnational crime and foreign terrorism.
Mr. Lyons, very quickly, we've had many members of the committee who have made allegations. The Democrats have taken the mantle of the party to defund the police and abolish ICE. Do you wish to take my last few seconds to speak about the consequences it has on the men and women that you serve?
The men and women of ICE are sworn law enforcement officers who are dedicated to do their mission to the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize a gentleman from California, Mr. Correa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome our witnesses today. Gentlemen, I want to start out by talking a little bit about my district, Southern California, Disneyland. Southern California is the center of manufacturing for the United States. California, biggest ag state in the Union. California, big donor, taxpayer dollars to the United States. On the promise to deport the worst of the worst. Your numbers, Mr. Lyons, less than 14% of those arrested by first year 2025 had charges or convictions of violence. 10% of those deported had not even a traffic ticket. Mr. Lyons, I think we're all patriots, but I'm trying to figure out how, this is a question to you, sir, how deporting a nanny makes our nation safer, stronger, how trying to deport the father of 3 make this country stronger, how deporting the parents of a number of Marines at Camp Pendleton this nation stronger.
Sir, thank you for your welcome, first off. Just to address your the numbers with the 14, that's 14% that are listed as violent criminal felonies. However, what's left out of that is the fact that what's left out.
Those 70% that don't have a traffic ticket and deported. How has that made our nation stronger?
Sir, if you look at what ICE has done, more than 60% of every in ICE custody has a pending or a conviction on a criminal charge.
Sir, let me move ahead. I only have 3 minutes, and we'll talk later.
Sir.
Let's talk about American citizens. Again, back home. Young people asking me, what do I have to carry with me so I won't be deported? Is, Mr. Lyons, carrying a passport, is that enough so they won't be detained or deported in my district?
Sir, an American citizen shouldn't carry or shouldn't feel the need to carry.
Let me tell you what some of your ICE agents have done. They pulled over a gentleman, showed his passport, they threw threw it to the side, detained him. What do we have to do to show that we're American citizens?
Sir, no American citizen falls under title. American citizen will be arrested for being American citizen.
But you just said, colleague, that nobody has been fired because of violations of the law for disciplinary actions. Yes, this is happening in my district. Mr. Lyons, we're a very boring district. We work hard, mind our own business. ICE in our streets now. People are terrorized. American citizens, number of cases of Americans being detained, being taken in, some being held for 5 days. Sir, what do we do with those people in that situation? What do we tell them?
Sir, I don't know of any particular case that you're speaking of American citizen being.
I'm more than happy to provide you a list, sir.
100%.
So let me ask you, sir, are you surveilling U.S. citizens today?
No, sir.
Those people protesting, practicing this First Amendment right, photos of them, data taken, they're placed in any kind of a database?
There is no database for protesters, sir.
One of your officers in Maine said, one of the individuals protesting, we're going to put your little database. What does that mean? Do you have a little database?
No, sir. No, sir, we don't.
Then what do you think your ICE said to this individual when he said those statements?
I can't speak for that individual, sir, but I can assure no database that's tracking United States citizens.
Sir, California, we're a sanctuary. Does that cause you a problem picking up individuals?
Sir.
I have with me today some data from Sheriff Barnes, Orange County Sheriff, friend, has been here to testify numerous times. 25, he referred about 300 individuals for your office to pick up. 250 were picked up, 50 were never picked up. A long conversation saying, what is going on? If these are the worst of the worst to pick them up and you didn't pick them up, can you explain to us why you didn't pick up all these individuals that were referred to pick up?
Yes, sir. That's the key part of that is the referral. We make sure that those individuals are eligible to be placed in detention and for mobility. So
you
in that
never
case,
even looked at
Gentlemen's
those
time's-
individuals.
Gentleman's time.
I would like to talk to you about this issue later on, Mr. Lyons.
Gentleman's has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Pfluger, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why are we here? I think it's pretty clear that until 5 years of experience that it seems like while is in favor of open borders and wants to abolish ICE. And I hope that that can be wrong. And the other side of the aisle wants to enforce the laws that are on the books. Commissioner Scott, how many administrations have you worked for in your career?
Since the Clinton administration?
So multiple Republicans and Democrats.
Correct.
Is it a crime to enter this country illegally, to skip a notice to appear, to skip a court-ordered appearance, and to not apply with the laws that are on the books?
Yes, sir.
Has that changed since you started working for President Clinton? So I can't imagine the fact that it is a crime to skip a notice to appear. We had 10 to 12 million people who entered this country illegally in the Biden administration as a conservative estimate. Sanctuary cities all throughout the United States who have said we comply with federal laws. That's why we're here today. I can't imagine being a DHS officer and an ICE officer and being threatened with violence, having death threats, having your family identified, putting that on the internet, and violently telling you that they are going to, because you are enforcing the laws that are on this books that were passed out in this body. Director Lyon, agents are being doxxed, threatened, or harassed.
We've had over 8,000% increase on death threats.
I'm in the middle of working a bipartisan domestic terrorism working group with another member on this committee. There is called Defend 612 that has come out with tactics, techniques, and procedures and to do things like encourage protesters to impede law enforcement, to push civilians towards legally and physically risky conference to help mobilize a counter-protest, to coordinate strategies and illegal immigrants to avoid detention. Are you familiar with groups like this, Defend 612?
Yes, sir. We have multiple groups around that in all 50 states.
There's an article written by Christina Buttons, and I'd like unanimous consent to enter this into the record, called Inside Minneapolis's ICE. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter.
Without objection.
This article talks about these tactics that put your law enforcement agents and your agents at risk. What is different about Minneapolis? What kind of coordination have you received from the police department that we don't see any of this in Texas? We've not seen, and there have been many ICE operations that have happened in Texas from what you've seen in Minneapolis.
Unfortunately, sir, at the beginning of the Minneapolis operation, we didn't see any cooperation at the state or the local level, whether it be from the Minneapolis Police Department or the Minnesota State Police, which led to ICE officers and agents as federal partners pretty much having to defend themselves from impediment, riots, or protests.
Were they told by local elect not to cooperate?
Yes, sir.
Is that because they're a sanctuary city?
I'm assuming that's
in
what it is,
part-
sir, but I can't speak to the mind of those elected officials, but they were ordered not to stand down.
How did it make you who carries out the laws that this body has passed when you hear the mayor of Minneapolis say F ICE?
Oh, sir, I mean, from a morale standpoint, it hurts us to the fact that for decades, since President Bush, ICE has always been in Minneapolis. We've always been in every major city and state. So it wasn't like it was a brand. We've always been doing immigration enforcement. So that's demoralizing.
But Commissioner Scott, are you separating families? Tell me about when you served President Obama. Has anything changed in the policy of deportation? And how many people did President Obama deport?
I don't have that number in front of me. Policies, things are enforced, do change. The laws have not changed. What you're referring to is literally when someone is arrested in immigration, or whether it's a normal criminal offense and they have children, we don't necessarily prosecute. But when someone's deported, if they want to take their children with them, they have that right to separate them.
I hope that the other side of the aisle will read on Defend 612 and look at the tactics, techniques, and procedures. Is domestic terrorism, where we have a group that's on signal that is calling out agents and doing things to interrupt, intercede, and law enforcement from carrying out the laws that this body passed, the courage to call it domestic terrorism if it is that way. And I
Yields back, and I now recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Tanadar, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. And good morning to our witnesses. Commissioner Scott, did you nurse Alex Preddy deserve to die?
I cannot comment on an ongoing investigation, sir.
Do you believe that he deserved to die? Should he be killed by your agents?
I'm not going to comment on an ongoing investigation, sir, before it's concluded. Facts are available.
Do you agree with CBP Commander Bovino's statement that Alex Preddy was planning to massacre law enforcement agents?
I'm not going to comment on an investigation, sir.
Lyons, did Renee Good to die?
Sir, I can't comment on ongoing investigations.
Did Lyons agree with Secretary Noam and Vice President Vance's association of Renee Good as a domestic?
Sir, I can't speak to their comments. As that there is an ongoing investigation. I can't speak to that.
Lyons, what did your agents mean? Said, you raise your voice, I erase your voice. In the video just that all of us have seen.
Sir, I'm not aware of that video that you have, sir. Comment on what that officer has said.
Statement, if I show you, does that statement reflect the value of your agency? And does ICE respect and adhere to the First Amendment?
Yes, sir. ICE does respect and refer to the first. That doesn't respect that. Well, your statement that you said, it doesn't represent the values of the men and women of ICE.
Commissioners, BP respect and adhere to the First and Second Amendment.
Do.
Don't you agree that Alex Preddy had every right to exercise his First and Second Amendment freedoms before being shot in the streets by one of your?
I believe every person in the United States has a right to their constitutional rights.
Look, I have heard and seen enough. I'm just sick and tired of your agents running around in our cities, in our streets, causing illegal activity. ICE and CBP thugs are roaming our streets, attacking our communities, using our children as bait, referring to people as bodies and numbers, targeting people for their accents and the color of their skin, and American citizens, all while showing zero remorse for their actions. Director Lyon, Scott, do you think President pardon you and your boss, Kristi Noem, before he leaves office, just as for insurrectionists and his political? Do you believe President Trump pardon you? Go ahead.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of President Trump, but I'll tell you, I signed up for this job to protect America, and I'm very proud of the service that I provide, and I don't need a pardon from anybody.
You better hope so. You better hope you get been pardoned, because you will be held accountable for the absolute disregard your agencies have shown over the year. Your agencies have lost the trust of the American people, with millions taking to the streets to protect the actions of your agencies. And that's why I introduced a bill to Congress to abolish ICE. ICE must be abolished. I also co-sponsored to impeach Secretary Kristi Noem. And I believe Kristi must be impeached. And this Congress must do everything in its power to carry oversight actions against these departments, including if...
Gentleman's time is expired. A witness has requested a break. Committee will recess for 5 minutes. Members of the audience will remain. Committee will come to order. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gonzalez, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for your service to our great country. I was speaking to some agents that were deployed from Texas to Minnesota, just asking for the ground truth of what was happening. And one of the things to me is one of the agents said, Tony, it reminds me a lot of Fallujah. Having someone that served in Fallujah, that caught my attention. And so my question first is to you, Commissioner Scott, is on the safety of our, in particular, I see that these task forces work, these anti-terrorism task forces. But it reminds me of we were fighting a war that was the Persian Gulf changed. And so my question is there a way we can protect our law enforcement, our federal law enforcement, in particular, through, I've got a bill in particular through bulletproof glass or ballistic windshields. Is that something you think that could help protect the law enforcement officers that are on the front lines?
I think that can protect the officers on the front lines, but it goes much farther than that because things changed. So the tactical infrastructure at the border, the bulletproof vest, all of that helps tremendously, but we're fighting a different fight now. The reason you saw so many people surged into LA at one point in Minneapolis was because we had to surge additional resources in to protect the ICE agents that were literally just going to try to make a lawful. So we had to put in two teams, one to do the arrest and another one to deal with the protesters. Luckily, CBP, well, not luckily, CBP's had to build out this capability over the years because we had been dealing with increased protests at the border, mass incursions, so we people how to do crowd control. But let's not miss the fact that we have coordinated, well-funded, and I think insurgency organizations, however you want to call it, literally trying to prevent legal law enforcement in the United States. That is a dramatic change why we've had to shift. So we got to figure out how to protect our officers and agents more holistically. On social media, how do we keep them from being doxxed? When it goes to like did to Director Lyons, they follow his kid home and then have protests in his front yard and then put it out live on. That needs to be a crime. I don't want to violate anybody's right to free speech, but going into your front yard and harassing your family just because you're a law enforcement officer, that should not be a protected action.
Change, and we need to change with it to make sure our federal law enforcement officers are protected. My next question is for Director Lyons. Body cameras have been deployed in Minnesota. I think regain public trust. Is there any plan to release any of the footage to the public?
100%, sir. I'm committed to is the full transparency, and I fully welcome body cameras all across the spectrum and all of our laws. It is, sir. Body cam footage will be released.
Completely. Everyone assumes this body camera footage is bad footage. So, in so many cases, it's the exact opposite. And we get a show from the officer's lens what exactly they're, not just a 15-second clip we see on TikTok or whatever it may be. I'm very pleased to hear the releasing of more published. My next question is for you, Commissioner Scott. As a member of Congress, I have a very similar, all of us, as a member of Congress, what can I do to make sure what happened in Minnesota doesn't happen?
Put laws in place that protect our officers and agents so they can go out and do their job confidently and know they really truly have the backing. And then, I got to plug it, actually fund the program. When body cameras got rolled out to CBP, the technical capability of the camera out, but the funding for the personnel to support the programs and the data, that can drain basically all your other ones. So fund the entire program so that we can parent and that we can make sure America knows what we're doing, because that is critically important.
Thank you for that. My next question is Director Edlow. Too many times we talk about the enforcement side, which I think we see the millions of criminal aliens that are loose in our country. We got to go out there and keep our community safe. But we need to be talking more about the legal aspect of it, that are doing it the right way. I was very encouraged to see 65,000 visas get released not too long ago. The question is, what are the details? What is the timeline behind that? What is the purpose of those? Can you specifically speak to the legal visa process?
Well, if you're referring to the 65,000 that were the supplemental
Yes.
H-2Bs.
That's exactly right.
So that's there's 60,000 or 65,000, 66,000 out every year at 2 times in the year, and then Congress Congress has for years given the department the authority to increase that based on the needs of the country. Those visas were released. I don't remember exactly
Gentlemen's
when the
time has expired. I apologize. Again, any questions? I know I'm being tight on the rules. We have to be. There's a lot of questions. We want to get through everything today. Be able to submit questions in writing, and you can detail these. Thank you very much. I now recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for 5 minutes of questions.
Mr. Lyons, has ICE was charged with a crime related to the January 6th riot here at the Capitol?
Sir, I would say no.
Could you find out and please report back?
Yes, sir, I'll get that. I'll take that as a
Would you hire someone who attacked police on January 6th, even though they were unfortunately pardoned by the president?
Sir, we take assault on law enforcement very serious, and we have a good vetting program. I'm sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott, how many of you have been disciplined for excessive use of force over the past year?
I cannot comment on ongoing.
I'm not asking you to comment on investigation. How many of your agents have been disciplined? I'm just asking for the total.
I'll get that number to you. I don't have it in front of me.
All right. I sent you a letter asking that question and haven't received a response. Will you commit to sending a response to me, please?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like you to view this video.
This is video of what appears to be pepper spray thrown by a federal agent into Rafael Verraz's.
You okay, Mama? You okay?
Seconds later, he realized daughter, 1-year-old Ariana, was in the back seat, also the chemicals.
Are you familiar with this incident?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is a family of United States citizens who were out to get groceries at a Sam's Club in Chicago. When they arrived, they could see that there was a chaotic operation in the parking lot. They turned their vehicle to leave, at which point your agents spray out of their vehicle and into the driver's side window, Verraz's family vehicle. Is it proper procedure to aim into the window of a moving vehicle?
I'm not familiar. I don't have all the details on this. It's an ongoing
I'm not asking about
investigation, but to answer your specific question,
is it proper procedure?
we try to avoid that. No, it's not.
Try to avoid it. Because you understand it's dangerous, right? Not just for the driver, but for pedestrians, for other people who could be hit by a car. Driver is blinded, right?
I 100% understand that, but you're talking versus not intentional.
Well, now listen.
I've been in a vehicle in one of these situations.
God, reclaiming my time. From the video, this was clearly intentional, and you know as well as any other law enforcement agency, if an officer did this, they would be put on leave, investigated, and likely disciplined. Were any of your agents ever investigated or disciplined for this incident?
I'll have to get back to you on this incident. I believe it's a still investigation, but we have at least 10
I'd like to show you
open
another video. This one is from Minneapolis. So as you can see, the agent pepper spray at close range directly into the face of an individual who had already been pinned to the ground by 3 other agents. And there's a picture of this by better view. Is this proper procedure for the use of pepper spray?
I cannot comment on that because you're in peace and that subject is clearly not compliant.
But this is not the intended use of this weapon, correct?
Intended use is to try to avoid escalating. It's to de-escalate the situation.
Well, he was already pinned to the ground by 3 other agents, de-escalated. Is there any investigation into this agent?
I'll get back to you. There are several open investigations.
All right. Listen, there has been no accountability in your agency under the Trump administration. None. Your agency has repeatedly been caught on tape using unnecessary against civilians, and you can't even tell me if any of these agents have been investigated or disciplined. You are supposed to be making people safe. Instead, your agents are being unnecessarily violent. And that is why the has lost the trust of the American people on immigration. Understand, it's not just the actions of the agents in the field, it is the lack of accountability from the top that has caused trust to erode. And there need to be major reforms before we give any of you any more funding. Your agents act like other law enforcement agencies. Take off the masks, wear badges, enforce discipline with real standards of conduct, but accountability starts at the top. Christie known unfit and should be removed from office, and all of the operations that we just were overseen by Commander Gregory Bavino, who himself engaged in excessive use of force. He even admitted that he lied to a federal judge when he claimed he had been hit by a rock throwing a tear gas canister at a crowd of civilians. Then after the footage came out, and that turned out to be not true, he admitted that he had lied about it. Mr. Scott, what disciplinary action do you plan to take against Mr. Bavino?
I cannot comment on personnel actions on any.
Is there an investigation underway or being considered into Mr. Bavino?
Every allegation and every use of force investigated.
Well,
with
please investigate him.
Goes through a review
You need
board.
to start enforcing discipline.
Gentleman's
in your
time
agency.
has expired. I now recommend Alabama. Mr. Strong for 5 minutes of question.
Thank you, Marino, Ranking Member Thompson, and thank you to all our witnesses for being here today. Let me start with the simple facts. The border is now closed. Fentanyl poisonings are down by more than 35%. Each of you for your service to our country. I remember in April of 23 when then Secretary Mayorkas testified before this very committee, this border was, and I quote, secure, quote, and not open. At the same time, under his leadership, illegal alien population surged 11 million. They were coming more than 100 as were released into our country by the millions. That's what the Biden administration, in concert with Secretary Mayorkas, did to America. Sold America out. The consequences of their failure are predictable. When the United States failed to enforce its border, the winners are not legal immigrants or Americans. It's the cartels, drug smugglers, human traffickers, and violent criminals. We need new laws to stop this crisis. We need a president willing to enforce the law already on the books. President Trump did exactly that. Another promise made, another kept. And today, the number of illegal aliens being released to the country is zero. Zero. That's what it took a president to make the hard decisions. And America is because of it. So my question is straightforward. Commissioner Scott, was Secretary Mayorkas telling the truth when he testified to this committee that the border was secure?
Consider testimony. No, he was not.
As you stated earlier, underlying immigration laws haven't fundamentally changed. What has changed? What has changed is how different administrations choose to enforce these laws, particularly during the previous administration. It was 100% orchestrated to allow illegal aliens to invade our country under the Biden administration. From an operational point, how important is consistency and enforcement, assurance, and border control?
It's extremely important, and we keep talking about immigration, but let me remind people, border security is national security. The cartels use illegal immigration to literally overwhelm law enforcement at the border and bring in all kinds of other threats. It's the second wave that always is the most critical. The Interior Enforcement sent a message around the world that we're not going to go. It took away the marketing ability of the cartels to get people to come to the border and overwhelm law enforcement. This all works together, important because it is national security.
Thank you, Commissioner. The men and women of DHS deserve our respect and the ability to do their job effectively. Mixed signals from Washington. Also want to be clear, men and women who work every day to secure our borders and in federal immigration laws. But lately we've seen growing strain on political rhetoric that goes beyond policy disagreement and targets the legitimacy of law enforcement itself. Rhetoric that puts a target on the backs of agents doing their jobs. Acting under lines, we keep hearing call-wing politicians to abolish ICE. Some, including many who should know better, have denied law enforcement as secret police. How would you respond to reckless attacks?
Sir, I can speak from personal experience, having served multiple administrations, that the men and women of ICE are out there every day doing the law as it's written.
What are the consequences of not enforcing federal immigration laws?
Sir, is done. If you look at the amount of, as I said earlier, the amount of known and suspected terrorists that we removed from the country, we arrested 1,477 this year and removed 1,480. Just that impact alone, along with the 7,800 gang members, makes a significant impact on public safety and national security.
Thank you. Attorney Edlow, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration plays a role in administering legal immigration and protecting the integrity of the system. When immigration enforcement is undermined or treated as illegitimate, how does that USCIS's ability to manage lawful pathways, fraud, and maintain public confidence in the legal process?
It makes it absolutely impossible, Congressman. We've done everything we can to administer that system now and to not cut were previously cut during the last administration.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman. 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lyons, what guidance have you given to your agents about asking people walking on this America to show proof of citizenship?
Sir, as I stated earlier, the men and women of ICE, deportation officers, we conduct targeted intelligence-driven operation. We on the streets asking people about their American citizenship.
Really? So all of those individual American citizens who have been randomly asked are lying. Is that what you're saying?
So women of ICE are conducting an investigation, whether it be for Title 8 immigration enforcement or Title 18 criminal enforcement. They'll ask someone their nationality.
Right, but targeted because they're asking all sorts of American citizens, including off the law enforcement. Now, have you joined your agents under the Supreme Court profiling ruling to only stop non-white people and those who look like immigrants ask for their citizenship papers?
No, sir, I haven't.
Now, you are aware, of course, and there's well-documented, numerous well-documented instances of people, American citizens, being asked to prove their citizenship. Do you know what other regimes in the 20th century required similar citizenship?
Yes, sir. Sir, there was very various regimes that did that.
Is Nazi Germany one?
Yes, but
Is the Soviet Union one?
I honestly,
sir, I'm asking the questions. Union one.
Yes, sir, but I totally the wrong type of questioning.
I'll tell you what the wrong type
but
of.
actually,
Sir, it's my
Holocaust
time.
Museum
Reclaiming
is
my
time,
sir.
If you want to go
Reclaiming
see
my
Nazis,
time,
that's what
Mr.
it is.
Chairman.
It's not the men and women of ICE that are out there doing it. So to say that the men and women of ICE are going to
Mr.
stop
Chairman,
us,
I'm reclaiming. I would like my
wrong.
time back, please. Please give me another 50 because he was unnecessarily speaking. You said in your opening that references to ICE as the Gestapo or the secret police encourages threats against ICE agents.
100%.
The problem is you have it backwards, sir. People are simply making valid observations about your tactics, American and outright fascist. So I have a simple suggestion. If you don't want to be called a fascist regime or secret police, then stop acting like one. But people are just observing what they are seeing. And that's why people are making those comments. Now, I was a prosecutor for 10 years. Processes organized crime, violent criminals. The actual worst of the worst. Not a single criminal law enforcement that I work with wore a mask to conceal their identity. But your department, which is a civil law enforcement agency, is defending the use of agents because of a so-called rise in threats and assaults against your officer. Now, you said in your opening testimony that assaults against ICE officers are up by more than 100%, which is now even more than the 1,300% that your gaslighting spokesperson, Tricia from Ohio, has recently been citing. But here's the problem. Two separate, very detailed, very thorough investigative reports based on your own data conclude that assaults against ICE officers are up about 25%, which is far less, of course, and far less than you would expect from an agency that has more than doubled its and has an even greater increase in arrests. Now, why is that a problem, Mr. Lyon? It's a problem because the explanation that your agents are wearing masks because of fear of assaults or doxing is outright bogus. You, untrained, unqualified, unvetted, unidentified agents, are intentionally terrorizing our cities all over this country to avoid accountability for their excessive force and their lawsuits. That is why you're wearing masks. So no one can hold you accountable. And the FBI is not going to, because notwithstanding all of the investigations all of you say are going on, the justice and the FBI has stated they are not investigating those two murders. This is not the America I know and love. This is not the America my immigrants came to. And it's long past time that you rein in your out of contingency and start following the law and the Constitution. And I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now from Arizona, Mr. Crane, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's interesting being in this hearing today, where my Democrat colleagues continue to demonize ICE security. I think history and context are very, very important. It's not lost on most of the American public that my Democrats actually caused this entire crisis with their openness that they all voted for, letting in close to 15 million illegal aliens. I also want to go through real quick some numbers of ICE deported presidents who I believe both you, Mr. Scott, and you, Mr. Orr. Under President Clinton, 12 million illegal aliens were deported and removed from this country, some violent departures, no riots. Under President Bush, 2 million, no riots. Obama, who was often referred to as the deporter-in-chief, 5 million, including returns, no riots. President Trump and his 2 million deported, no riots. President Biden, 4 million, including expulsions, varying by estimates. President Trump again this year, 625,000, with 2 million voluntary leaving to home at. Mr. Scott, can you explain why these other presidents that you work for, both Democrat and Republican, deported far more people than this president, and we've seen no riots?
I would say it has a lot to do about rhetoric and misleading the American public about what's really going on and how important border security really is to this nation.
Let's talk also about my Democrat colleagues and something they also supported, and that's these sanctuary cities. I think that's very important, and a lot of Americans really understand these sanctuary cities. Mr. Lyons, is it true that you would rather send your officers into a jail to get some of these illegal alien criminals? Is it safer for your agents and also the illegal alien criminal if your officers are able to go into a jail instead of having to go and find them on the street? Mr. Lyons, I'll start with you.
Yes, sir, it would be. You wouldn't see the amount of law enforcement officers involved in immigration operations.
Right. How about you, Mr. Scott?
I 100% agree with, and more, just as importantly, it would allow me to put more agents back on the border to prevent them getting in here in the first place.
Let's also talk about these riots. Mr. Scott, Mr. Lyons, do you guys remember any riots, when for some of these victims that were assaulted and victimized by illegal alien criminals like Nate Baker, Laken Riley, Fletcher Harris, Skylar Provenza, Ivory Smith? I've got a whole list of them. Do you remember any riots from our Democrats or their constituents when any of these American citizens were victimized by illegal alien criminals?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Why do you think that is? Because that's the question that I get asked all the time. Congressman, why do the Democrats care more about illegal alien criminals than they care about these American citizens? Many of them are young, have their entire lives ahead of them, didn't show up to a protest, right, to obstruct enforcement. They're just going about their daily lives and they get victimized by people who aren't supposed to be here. Why do you think they don't care about citizens?
I cannot speculate, but when I look at the chaos that it creates and the corrosive nature that it creates beyond the politics of the United States, and I look at our nation-state adversaries like Iran, Russia, and China, and their influential media to keep this negative discourse going. And I think this is a much bigger issue than we're actually admitting that it is in here.
I want to tie this together to something that's very pertinent that's going to happen this week here in Congress, where the American people are going to see of what's going on. We are going to attempt to pass the Save America Act, okay? It requires documentary proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote. It imposes photo ID requirements, and it penalizes officials who do not enforce these requirements. And you won't see most of these on the other side that are demonizing you guys right now. You will not see them support it. So they let millions and millions of illegal aliens into. They set up these sanctuary cities so you can't go and force these federal laws that are on the books that Congress has passed. Vote to stop these illegals from voting in our elections. If the American people don't understand what this whole about, it's about one word, and it always has been, and that is power. They want power. They need these illegals to vote in our elections. That's why they don't care about the fraud either, because they need those votes as well. Thank you. I yield back.
Yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Merman, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman. A Guatemalan immigrant and an American have responsibility to look evil in the eye and to back. Mr. Lyon, Mr. Scott, Mr. Edlow, you have used your power to perpetrate great evil. And it's about time you answer this committee for the lawlessness that you've empowered and defended. Mr. Lyons, I want to start with you. I want to talk about ICE, because under your leadership, ICE has showed Silverio Villegas Gonzalez and Rene Good violated nearly 100 court orders alone. You've used banned chokeholds in more than engaged in warrantless arrests despite of a consent decree, and you used children as bait to put 3,000 children in detention. You created traps for people who were following the law and doing it the legal way. And you broke entering into people's homes without a judicial violation of the Fourth Amendment. Now, let's talk about you, Mr. and CBP next. Under your leadership, CBP has attempted to execute Marimar Martinez, shooting her 5 times and not releasing the footage that you should release, so the evidence, murdered Alex Preddy. You medical agents dozens of times in Chicago after a ordered you to stop, conducted warrantless racial profiling, and acted with total disrespect and disregard for the law while engaging in roving patrols, pushing dangerous traffic maneuvers, and observer intimidation. Again, criminals act with that total disregard for the law. We continue to see it. You would both have us talk about respect for your mission and your agents. But your agencies are unaccountable paramilitary forces, and I have just as much respect for you as I do for the last white men who put on masks to terrorize communities of color. I have no respect for the inheritors of the Klan Hood and the Slave Patrol. Those activities were immoral then and criminal, and so are. And that brings me to you, Mr. Edlow, and USCIS. Truly, USCIS is the pointing part of this whole panel for me. Mr. Edlow, let me ask you a question. Is USCIS's mission to uphold America's promise as a nation of welcome and possible with fairness, integrity, and respect for all we serve? Yes or no? Is that the mission?
The mission is to administer the lawful immigration
system. So let me move on. So it is not for the possibility of fairness, integrity, and respect. I get that. I want to tell you about Stephen, my constituent, Mr. Edlow. Stephen is a 14-year-old with autism who is seeking asylum. This child has spent 60 days in detention center after he was detained with his dad at a check-in. Let me ask you this. What kind of agency, asylum protections from children, even those with pending claims, and deport minors without due process? You don't have to answer that. It's your agency, Mr. Edlow. You are doing that to Stephen, my constituent, an 8th grader. You have abandoned the mission and allowed USCIS to become a tool in abusive enforcement apparatus, Mr. Edlow. Shameful to see what USCIS has become. As I've said before, DHS, ICE, CBP, they're not really rogue. Congress designed to violate our rights under the defense of securing our safety. I'm going to say it loud and clear, and I'm proud to stand by what I say. DHS cannot be reformed. It must be dismantled, and something new must take its place. Because if we persist, it will contain a weapon that can be pointed at anyone the government considers the public enemy. And let me tell you, fascism always requires enemy. But the power of the people is stronger than the weapons they would wield against us. So Mr. Lyons, Mr. Scott, Mr. Edlow, you have weapons. You have supported a fascist enterprise at the expense of constitutional rights. You have violated the law. But let me remind you, you will not always be in power. One day, held accountable for your role in this dark moment in America, in our nation's history. I guarantee it. And with that, Mr. Chairman, yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. As I said, the issues we're debating here are important ones that about while vigorous disagreement is part of the legislative process, members are reminded that we must adhere to established standards of decorum. And witnesses are here today voluntarily, and I will continue to remind members that while oversight is important, aggressively attacking witnesses is inappropriate and not in keeping with the best traditions of our committee. And I now recognize the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Burkeen, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses. I want to start with a display over my shoulder. And this is something that is not specific only to Oklahoma. This is something that every member of this committee, if you will go to the DHS website, every constituent of Congress, if you're curious of really the dark days, I want you to go to the DHS website and look at those not far from where you live, moms and dads. The arrest of illegal aliens who were preying on just because of a really intentional act by Kate Bryan on my staff to go a couple of weeks ago and look just on the right side of me here. Just in eastern Oklahoma, I represent almost all the entirety of eastern Oklahoma. These are just individuals, heinous acts to include those with children. And yet I want to read you in a wider to my what is happening in the state of Oklahoma. This person was picked up. Angel Nick, sexual exploitation of a minor. Renton Andrew, molestation of a minor. Chan Truding, child fondling. Feliciano Garcia, enticement of a minor. Caetano Lopez, statutory rape. Erasmo Avila, rape with a minor. So, for every, in short-term memory, it's the way things operate in public opinion. Everyone is looking and you're forgetting the conversations you were having 2 and 3 years ago. Teenage kiddos wanting to go outside of your home, and you knew that they were going to go to Dallas, Texas, or some city, and you knew that you had to have a conversation with them with what was happening, the 15 million you knew were in the country illegally, that you had no idea what they would be doing, be preying upon. And moms and dads, don't you feel just a little bit safer if we're going to be gut level honest? That's the realization of what the generational opportunity this has afforded this country. It's the ability to feel safe over the madness of opening the border for that 4-year period that allowed 15 million people. You don't know where they came from. You don't know their history. And this is occurring right now is designed to make sure we have order in this country. If you do not have law and order, you don't have prosperity. So to all those congestioning the reactionary moments, the enforcement who have to respond in real time. The quarterback who's questioned Monday morning because he's facing a 300-pound defensive lineman, it's easy that. But law enforcement walks out of their home every day and is faced with life or death questions. Understand, they are the ones who are affording us the opportunity for our children to feel safe against these that are in your backyard. in the north. It's not just in Minneapolis. It's not just in Minnesota. They're in every state in the country. Go to the department site and Google your area and look at who's in your backyard. That's how we recenter this conversation to truth. I want your children protected. I'm a president who wants your children protected, and an administration. The same playbook is happening now to create chaos and tear the eye off the real goal, which is to secure our communities, to get back to a place of safety. Mr. Lyons, can you describe, because of not allowing these people to stay in jails, these sanctuary cities are letting them go, thousands released from jail because they lie. And when ICE tries to execute a detainer, ask him to hold a criminal illegal alien for potential deportation compared with other non-sanctuary city regions in the country?
Sir, it's night and day. With the cooperation, we're able to take that individual in a safe, secure environment. Not only is it a safe, secure environment for the officers and agents, but it's also for the community, because we only need 1 to 2 officers to make that arrest. Historically, 5 or 6, we need up to 15.
From what you've seen in terms of protests in Minnesota and elsewhere, do you get the staters are trying to provoke your agents into reactions? Can you expound upon that?
We've seen multiple. Fortunately, we saw like the shooting in Dallas, where agitated groups to identify the location of ICE officers sometime prior to even the law enforcement action begins, and sometimes using those apps put the officers and as well as other federal agencies and local agencies with them in danger, because the fact of where a law enforcement operation is happening.
Describe how the 300,000 children, the UACs, unaccompanied minors, that we're trying to find them, how these protests are stopping us from being able to.
Gentleman will respond in writing to that question. I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Kennedy, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Lyons, your written testimony today does not make one single mention of Renee Nicole Good or Alex Preddy. Not one. 2 American citizens have been murdered at the hands of your agency, and you have deliberately before Congress to ignore these tragedies. And so today, in my 5 minutes, I look forward to getting the American people in some accountability that I believe they deserve. Mr. Lyons, I have some simple yes or no questions. Do you believe the U.S. Constitution provides due process for everyone in this country?
Yes.
American citizens have the right to protest freely without being assaulted or killed by our government?
Yes.
Do you believe there should be an independent investigation if an innocent person is killed by a law enforcement agency in this country?
Yes.
Do you believe your agency has a legal obligation to enforce orders?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Lyons, you have a very strange way of showing it with a federal that your agency is in 96 orders in 1 month alone. Just Minneapolis, Minnesota. This administration and the agencies represented before us have shown a complete disregard for the law and the Constitution. Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy, both American citizens, both dead at the hands of federal agents. Alex Preddy was a VA ICU nurse who died to healing people, healing veterans. I worked as an occupational therapist for over a decade. In that video that we've all seen, it was Alex Preddy who was doing what healthcare workers do, what nurses do. They help people who are hurting, help people who are in trouble. In this case, helping a fellow peaceful protester who was shoved to the ground right before your agents shot him 10 times. And we're now learning that Kash Patel stopped the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota from investigating the death of Ms. Good because of fear that an investigation would contradict President Trump's falsehoods that she violently, willfully, and viciously ran down an agent. 6 prosecutors resigned rather than participate. Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, and you, Mr. Lyons, have appointed yourselves judge, jury, and executioner, allowing American citizens to be gunned down with impunity. We all know the president is a liar. He's sold snake oil his entire life, but he can't tell us and the American people that we did not see with our own eyes what we saw in that video. Americans shot dead in cold blood. The American people aren't stupid like he thinks we are. Our government murders American citizens, lies about it, and then refuses to investigate or seek justice is beyond abhorrent. It's un-American. Mr. Lyons, in America, we shouldn't have secret police. We shouldn't have government agents executing citizens in the streets. The Constitution does not give your agency the right to hide their faces while they kill Americans. Will you commit, yes or no, to immediately unmasking every agent conducting immigration enforcement and requiring them to wear standard uniforms with identifiable badges?
No.
Well, that's a sad response. Your answer is people who are proud of what they do, hiding their identity. We're in laws, and you, your boss, Secretary Noem, Donald Trump are not above the law. The Americans are angry, and they're demanding accountability and justice, giving the orders. Mr. Lyons, yes or no, do you believe that Secretary Noem should resign?
I'm not going to comment.
So you're going to look the families of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy in the eye and tell them Secretary Noem should keep her job after their loved ones were killed?
Sir, the loss of any life is unacceptable. And my heart, prayers, and thoughts go out to anyone who tragically losing his life, especially a child, since I've lost in my life. But I'm not going to comment on ongoing investigation.
Well, Mr. Lyons, the American people are watching. Your unwillingness to demand from your own leadership speaks volumes to American citizens.
Gentleman's time is expired.
The American people deserve
Gentleman's time
accountability.
is expired. Members are reminded that we must adhere to a forum in debate. It is a clear violation of the rules of the House to make statements that might be personally offensive to the President or the Vice President. I now recognize the gentlelady from South Carolina, Ms. Biggs, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses. A big thank you for what you do each and every day to secure our border out the will of the American people. You know, this Trump administration and the CBP and ICE, they've done a job of securing our border. And we can just look at the numbers. They tell the facts. Crossings are at a high of over 300,000 a month under President Biden to around 10,000 a month under President Trump. However, the lax border policies of the Democrats have flooded our country with tens of illegal immigrants. This invasion was facilitated by sanctuary cities. Most cities will hand over criminal aliens with a deportation order to ICE, but sanctuary cities often releasing them back into the public around our communities, our children, and making cities like Minneapolis pick and choose which laws they want to enforce. And by doing that, they put our federal law enforcement in danger, forcing ICE agents to make arrests out in public, something avoided if sanctuary cities simply cooperated with the federal law. At the same time, radical leftists have stirred hysteria over routine immigration enforcement, immigration officers, the secret police, and even Dabo. Let me be very clear. Rhetoric has consequences. Between 2020 and 2025, we saw a more than 16,000% increase in threats of immigration officers and over 8,000% spike in death threats targeting our laws. In Minnesota alone, there have been over 60 threats and 20 assault officers. Just think about that. If you were going to work every day and had to deal with that. Sanctuary cities over citizens. My bill, the Mobilizing Against Sanctuary Cities Act, would cut off every federal dollar to any city that helps illegals instead of law enforcement. Mr. Lyons, my question is to you. Why should taxpayers fund far left politicians who put your agents at risk?
Ma'am, unfortunately, what we've seen over and over is just the fact that there's so much rhetoric out there against the work the men and women of ICE have done. Back in my career, this is my second decade demonstrations, and it's never been like this. And the actual public safety impact that the men and women of ICE do every day is significant. Should still be true for all 50 states.
Thank you. So I want to take it a little closer to home. What's happening in my district, the 3rd District of South Carolina, it should alarm every single individual. These are real crimes committed by individuals illegally right here in our communities, confirmed by the Department of Homeland Security. We heard a little bit from my colleagues earlier. So let me just give you a few of the worst. Vehicular child cruelty and indecent exposure, armed robbery, assaulting a police officer with a weapon, terrorist threats, and I could go on and on. We're also seeing convictions for drug trafficking, forgery, repeated illegal re-entry, and more and more. And this is what I consider chaos. And it's the direct result of open border policies that put American lives at risk. But amid all of this, we're seeing true step up. Our federal immigration officers are on the front lines of securing safety and prosperity for us and for our. They've been given a difficult task, but they are up to the job and certainly meeting the demand. We stand behind our immigration officers and their mission to restore the rule of law to the United States. And right here at home, our local law enforcement is rising to meet the challenge, and I'm very grateful to them. Look at Anderson County Sheriff's Department in the photo behind me, which recently seized 180 pounds of cocaine. That's 180 pounds of deadly drugs that will never reach our streets. The courage and commitment. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm grateful for the job that you do.
Lady yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. MacGyver, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, and ranking member. Mr. Lyons, as the senior official leading ICE enforcement, much of today's scrutiny falls on you, and it should. We have seen repeatedly that Republicans, Trump administration, DHS, and will do absolutely anything to avoid answering your actions. When I showed up to inspect Delaney Hall, a private that you contract with, ICE tried not to get an oversight tour. Then, instead of taking ability for ICE's attempts to keep us from seeing these conditions, to know if people's basic rights were being upheld, this administration is doing all they can to try to put me in prison 17 years. When ICE shot and killed Renee Good, called her a domestic terrorist. When Alex Preddy, you all tried to tell us he was threatening officers with a gun, but all was a phone. This administration's clear lies fell apart, not because someone had a come to Jesus moment, but because we see murders from every angle. You are here because public outrage has become so unavoidable. You are here, Mr. Lyons, because white people are getting shot in the face and chest when the cameras are rolling. Because now my Republican colleagues care about optics. But when Keith Porter Jr., a Black American son, a father, and a man loved by many, was killed by an off-duty ICE agent on New Year's Eve, there were no hearings. This is for him today. In my district, Judas, a Haitian immigrant, a beloved family man, within 24 hours of being in ICE custody, one of more than 30 people who have died in ICE custody last year. This is for all of them. Every human being your rogue, out-of-control agency has hurt, down, imprisoned, killed, and continue to hold hostage even after they have agreed to board it. We know this administration doesn't care about protecting people or sparing lives. We all see so are doing what you have been doing to Black and brown folks, people silenced in the shadows, now brought to people peacefully rejecting your cruel agenda in the streets, which is their right to do. This is a predictable result of an agency that laughs at oversight, receives billions to deploy lethal hoods, and seems to believe that they are above the law and should be without accountability. This administration believes first, explain later, or hell, never explain at all, as we see here today. You all seem to think you are the highest power who decides which people deserve dignity, protection, due process. But you are wrong. We are here for answers. We are here for accountability, and we are here because people are dying. Repeat that. People are dying, and you don't seem to care. So, Mr. Lyons, I've heard my colleagues ask many questions over and over again, and you cannot answer them. So let me ask you some questions that you may be able to answer. Mr. Lyons, do you consider yourself a religious man?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, how do you think Judgment Day will work for you with so much blood on your hands?
I'm not that question.
Oh, okay, of course not. Do you think you're going to hell, Mr. Lyons?
I'm not going to end.
Of course not. How many government...
The gentlelady will suspend. Gentlelady will suspend.
Chairman?
A gentlelady will suspend. As I said, the issues we're debating here are important to ones that members feel out.
Thank you.
While vigorous disagreement is part of the legislative process, members are reminded that we must adhere to established standards of decorum in debate. The witnesses are here voluntarily, and I will continue to remind members that while oversight is simply attacking those witnesses personally is inappropriate with the traditions of our committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking a question. You guys are always talking about religion here in the Bible for me to ask a question, right? But let me continue on. I got your note.
All right, the gentlelady may resume.
Thank you so much. Let me get back to my question, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you. How many government agencies, Mr. Lyons, are aware of that routinely kill American citizens and still get funding?
Ma'am, I'm not going to entertain that.
Of course you're not. Exactly. Once again, questions that you cannot answer. And that is exactly, and to this committee, to my colleagues, and to my colleagues across the aisle, this is exactly why we should not be funding this agency. The people are watching you. They are watching you. And this is why we need to abolish ICE. I yield back. Thank you kindly.
Yields back. I now recognize gentleman from Colorado, Mr. 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, for this important hearing. This past year has been historic for national security, thanks to the work between the agencies present today and our Republican colleagues. Big Beautiful Bill unlocked billions of dollars to finally secure the border and deliver much-needed support for law enforcement officials who keep us safe every day, slashing things like the scourge of overthrows that claimed approximately 400,000 lives under the previous administration, and this is despite increasing violence against federal officers, which has been inspired by fear-mongering. As a soldier for 12 years, as a cop for 10 years, and as the only Colorado's delegation, it's been my long-standing position that with a secure border, we must use all available resources to target the worst of the worst, violent offenders like murderers, and so-called non-violent like drug dealers and thieves and child porn producers. Get the gangsters, not the grandmas. Director Lyons, is ICE's priority the apprehension and removal of non-citizens rather than the broader population of illegal individuals?
Yes, sir. ICE's continued focus is on the aliens that are in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Democrats in my state in Colorado champion soft on crime sanctuary policies at the state level and in cities like borders my district. These policies not only impede investigations that target cartels, gangbangers, entities like Tren de Aragua, MS-13, the Sinaloa cartel, but endanger our communities by releasing dangerous criminals back into the streets who continue to traffic drugs, steal cars, intimidate, recruit children. In fact, fentanyl overdose rates in Denver are going up in 2025. It's common sense that local or state police arrest an individual for a crime, those should be able to obtain basic information about the arrestee, and those state and local can be allowed to share information with federal law enforcement to communicate threats, honor requests, and work together to ensure national security and public safety. So, Director Lyons, can you please explain how ICE works around sanctuary policies to go after the worst of the worst? And do these sanctuary policies that release criminals back into the community or decrease ICE's presence in the community and of the interactions that ICE has with the community?
We deal with sanctuary jurisdictions. We do have to have more law enforcement officers. Like I said earlier in my testimony, we'd much rather have the chance to take a aggravated felon, rebuy offender into custody at a prison, local jail, or some type of lockup environment where it's safer for my officers and for not only the individual as well. And then given the opportunity to take that person into custody before a person can reoffend. Unfortunately, as a field office director, when I ran the Boston office, we saw too many times that we placed a detainer on a sexual assault individual who just went out later after the drop to rape again. And that is why we need cooperation at all levels, especially the local and state.
Thank you. Director Lyons, my district, 40% Hispanic. It's full of business owners and strong immigrant families. Unfortunately, my colleagues across the aisle are fanning the flames of fear on political gain in my Hispanic communities, scaring people over events that haven't happened in my district. So I'd like for you for just a brief moment to speak directly to my constituents present in the U.S., not criminals, but who are searched or detained via immigration efforts. Should they fear ICE? And what policies does ICE have to prevent this legal status?
Sir, ICE officers and special agents are trained in the Immigration Nationality Act. So anyone that is here lawfully or a U.S. citizen should not be concerned about being deported or detained. Unfortunately, many times there are with criminal illegal aliens. And sir, as you being a former law enforcement officer, you know, you arrive on a scene, you are in that case. If we're looking for an individual and someone is here present in the country legally, then we're going to take action. We're not going to more. But someone that's in the country lawfully should not feel scared to walk down the street, drive.
Thank you. Sorry, left. Have one thing that I want to ask. As a cop, I had an arrest warrant, and there's a difference between arrest warrants and search warrants. If I had for an individual and I thought they were in the house, or if I was assisting social services with a child removal, I still had to have an arrest warrant to go in the house. So I have many questions about the memo saying that you don't need a warrant to go into the house. Will you commit with me at a later date to discuss this?
Sir, I would look forward to sitting down and discussing that.
Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from Ms. Johnson for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to, Mr. Lyons, I wanted to just follow up a statement that you just made, which is that if you're here legally and lawfully, you should not worry. There are many, many immigrants that are here legally and lawfully that are very worried because they have been to the streets. They have had their face beat in by ICE agents. They've been yanked out of their car. They've been driven around and harassed. And so that is, I think, at the end of the day, the key nut of the crux here. Unfortunately, there is not just this focus on criminals and that people who are here in legal status. And for example, I have an example of this that I'd like to highlight for you. Back in October, Maher Tarabishi, a North Texas resident, in this country legally, under a supervision order to check in on an annual basis since 2008. And did that because he had an adult disabled son. And so he was here working as an IT consultant and with the legal process to take care of his adult legal son. He went to check into his appointment. It so happened to be at the time that the Dallas ICE office was closed due to the shooting. And so he was not able to check in. When he went back to check in, he was immediately snatched up, detained, because he missed his appointment. That was unavoidable. It was closed. He told everyone here was he in legal status. He had been here since 2008, and he had an adult disabled son that would likely pass away if he was not released. he was not released. And then to complicate it, he was not allowed to attend the funeral. And he's still in detention in the facility in Texas. He is not a criminal. He has no criminal history. He was here legally. That is an unacceptable. And I would like to know if you are willing to review his case and help us get his release, because he should not be in the Bluebonnet facility under these facts.
Yes, ma'am. I'm committed to reviewing that case for you.
I appreciate that. The other issue that I'm very concerned about is these warrantless entries into people's homes. It is a problem that of epic proportion. There was just recently, yesterday, circulation, a Latino family, ICE just broke into their home without a warrant. And there was an example where they arrested a man in his pajamas who had every right to U.S. citizen, but wrongfully snatched out in the freezing cold without a warrant to do so. The problem that we're having, nobody wants to see attacks on ICE agents, sir. But this is something I have brought up in this committee time and time again, which is, unfortunately, leadership and under Secretary Noem's leadership, this rogue brutality that ICE agents are inflicting upon the people of this country being reined in. It's not being, the agents who are abusing their power are not being held accountable. There are many fine agents who are doing everything they can to exercise their duty lawfully. But the problem is those who are not. And the power that they have has gone to their head, and they use that power in violation of many people's direct constitutional rights. And what you're seeing in this country is the fact that your agency, you're not stopping. And rather than saying, yes, we're going to take steps to keep these people who are abusing and who are terrorizing citizens of this country wrongfully, well, that's what we want to see. You're doubling down on that we're only going after criminals. With your own comments, you said that you had 379,000 arrests, but only 8,700 of them were suspected gang members or known terrorists. That's 2%. And the problem is you can't terrorize 98% of the country that have been wrongfully detained for 2%. That's not how the system works. Not okay. And so we have to do a better job. And so what procedures are you putting in place to hold agents accountable who have a hot trigger and who clearly abuse their authority because of a phone and a whistle?
Ma'am, ICE does have the Office of Professional Responsibility. It's a robust internal investigation agency that does investigate allegations of special agent or deportation officer misconduct, and we do investigate those.
Well, those are not being publicly reported, and so that's where there's a huge breach of the public trust, because there's any accountability, sir. Thank you, and I'll yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Ms. for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate all of our testifiers being here today. Before I begin, I would like to thank all of our members of law enforcement across the country who work every day to keep our communities safe, and also to their families, that we know that it's a challenging job, and the environment is made particularly challenging by those who want to oppose our law, carrying out their lawful duties to keep everybody in our country and our community safe. As earlier, there are a couple areas, though, where I think it's appropriate to discuss potential reforms and the way that we can improve our government operations. DHS guidance indicates that ICE does not arrest or detain U.S. citizens. On the other hand, social reports and accusations that this is occurring. Any accusation that an American citizen's rights are violated is very serious. Can you clarify, Mr. Lyons, whether this occurs, and what are the circumstances where a U.S. citizen might be detained, and what steps does ICE take to prevent?
Yes, sir. I appreciate the question. Well, unfortunately, there's a misnomer that ICE is just a civil enforcement agency, and that's completely wrong. ICE enforces 100 criminal statutes as well. Special agents, especially with the Homeland Security, they're consistently out there doing human trafficking cases, drug cases, terrorism cases, and we do encounter U.S. who do commit federal crimes are arrested. But under Title 8, no U.S. citizen is subject to civil immigration enforcement, and that just doesn't happen. There are multiple safeguards in that way, and if a U.S. citizen is detained in the course of immigration investigation, they're quickly released. We don't take action on American citizens.
If it does occur where a U.S. citizen is detained during the course of another investigation, how is that documented and conveyed to the public about the fact that this did occur and what the search on that were?
So, sir, if you say it's a separate investigation, if it comes to a criminal case, obviously a lot of those run or ongoing investigations, we won't expose that. We're transparent in the case when it comes to any U.S. citizen that's detained in any law enforcement operations that's subsequently arrested.
And I think greater transparency could be beneficial to the American public and everybody involved here if we articulate what occurred in many of these instances. I've seen it myself when I'm looking into local issues in our community. There are oftentimes the story, and when it is actually conveyed what did occur and why it occurred, there's a greater understanding in our local enforcement activities that occurred. The second thing I would like to hit on is jurisdictions, which are sometimes referred to sanctuaries. Not a clear definition, as we all know, but local authorities in our community, we have Northampton County, where ICE detainer requests for 48 hours and properly convey to ICE and law enforcement about the release of that individual when or even during that detainer period to come onto their property to make an arrest in a secure facility. Obviously, that leaves our community in a vulnerable position. In our case, members of Tren de Aragua, domestic abusers, have been released onto the street, and ICE had to stake out that location, making the arrests in an unsecure local community. From your perspective, how does this dynamic affect public safety and day-to-day operations, and where can we change and improve the coordination between partners?
Thank you, sir. Again, and what I would say is just very basic communication would go a long way for public. You know, ICE respects and abides by state and municipality laws as well, where sometimes you can't hold for any reasons. But a simple phone call to let us know that that individual is going to be released, or if that individual is released, sharing that biographical data with us way. Because the last thing we want is aliens to go back into the community, and more often than not, they prey on other migrants who are coming here for a better life, yet that they can hide in plain sight because these sanctuary jurisdictions won't just notify ICE that they're being re-released.
Well, I appreciate full cooperation between our local law enforcement and federal agents when they are trying to do their job. If somebody is on a detainer onto that property, given the ability within that detainer window to make a lawful arrest, I think it would go a long way to keeping our community safe. I would like to thank all of you again for being here and present for this kind of testimony. I think brings greater accountability and increases the ability for us to make reforms in Congress.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to our ranking member, Thompson. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for being here. Let me just be clear. Secretary Noem must step down or be impeached by the House, period. The cruelty, the outright viciousness that she has created has destroyed an agency whose very mission is to protect our country. Under Noem's congressional oversight is ignored, due process is ignored, and laws are broken without thought. The first time any of you have testified before our committee. It took 2 American citizens being murdered in cold blood to get you to show up. ICE raids schools, churches, and hospitals. And let's not forget, Fabian Ramos. You used him as a bait, and then him, despite his father legally seeking asylum. Liam is the face of cruelty. My district is one of the most ethnically diverse. Our diversity is our strength, but you all seem to believe it's a weakness. Last fall, the Supreme Court greenlit ISIS to yank people off the street based on one thing, such as, quote, the type of speaking Spanish or speaking with an accent, their apparent race or ethnicity. Mr. Lyons, I speak Spanish. If I wasn't wearing my member, would me being a Latina or speaking Spanish be enough for ICE agents to harass me or shove me in one of your unmarked cars?
No, ma'am.
Speak for all of us when I say I think we know the real answer to this. These are the realities, traumatized. We know that ISIS New Jersey detainees to other states like Texas, ripping them from their families and leaving them unable to their detention. Mr. Ice, yes or no? I'm sorry, Ms. Lyons. Yes or no? Will provide us with a list of people ICE has transferred from New Jersey to other states so that I can inform their family they are?
Yes, ma'am.
These are people like my constituent, Cordelia, whose ICE shipped to Texas and continues to detain despite two judicial orders compelling her release. Over the weekend, Lee Cow was hospitalized for 72 hours while her family had no idea where she was at, nor the status of her condition. Would you be willing to look into this to make sure to release my constituent? Why have you failed to inform her family where she was sent and the status of her condition? And will she be freed?
Yes, ma'am. You have my commitment that I'll look into that.
Thank you. Now soon, Lions, and all of you, my district will hold World Cup matches and hundreds of thousands of will come. Visitors confidence is plummeting and jeopardizing the World Cup. Mr. Lyon, will you commit to ensure that pausing its operation at FIFA matches and other FIFA-sanctioned public events?
Ma'am, ICE specific investigations is a key part of the overall security apparatus for the World Cup. We're dedicated to securing that, and we're dedicated to the security of all our participants as well as.
You realize that if they feel that they're going to wrongfully incarcerated or wrongfully pulled out, that's going to hurt this entire process. I hope you realize.
Yes, ma'am, and ICE is dedicated to ensuring that everyone that visits their facilities will have a safe and secure event.
Without these, our local communities and national reputations will indeed be suffered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Knott, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Using the trope, diversity is strength, as an excuse for lawlessness is unbelievably naive and dangerous. Nobody in this room would say diversity is a bad thing. Lawlessness is a bad thing. Order is much more of our strength than open-bordered policy. Anybody with no vetting. And when you get down to the nuts and bolts of this issue, we would not be having this hearing if the Democrats illegal immigration with the same vigor that they're attacking law enforcement and the men at this table. That's a fact. And that the dishonesty in framing these issues has been unbelievably obvious. It's been consumed as an anecdote, Mr. Lyons. Was Liam used as bait by your agency?
No, sir. Officers took care of the child after the father abandoned him at a
Walk us through what that means.
So, sir, the individual that was driving the Liam was in fled from the scene from the officers. He was obviously upset. We comforted him. They had officers actually, one of our vehicles, played his favorite song, played his favorite music, him to McDonald's.
You all got him McDonald's. So you did not use him as bait. Any characterization of that is a lie. And it has been repeated over and over by the deframe your agency. You know, it's worth noting again that the Democrats fought to prevent any vetting of 20 million illegal immigrants into this country over the last 4 years. They attack agents rather than those who are assaulting agents today. They continually misframe what's happening in the ground. They continually malign the law enforcement officers who are providing legal structure to otherwise lawless landscapes in this country. And it's worth noting that there have been rough people in the country who have been removed in the last year, some early and then some by forced deportations. We've heard roughly about 25 cases of alleged abuse. Some of them, as I just pointed out, are dishonestly framed. Let's do a favor to the Democratic side. Let's increase that number by 1,000 times. 25,000 alleged abuse or improper protocols. We are still operating at roughly 99% proficiency. Given the scale of the problem, the scale of the solution that you all are operating under, your agents are doing a remarkable, and I thank you. But one issue that I want to talk about is this idea of sanctuary policy. Sanctuary policies is not just a passive relinquishing effort. It's an active obstruction. Isn't that true, Mr. Lyon?
Yes, sir.
And what I mean by that is when I say it's to be specific, there are sanctuary states and cities that will release violence rather than handing them over to pursuing federal law enforcement.
That is correct, sir.
I left the hearing a few moments ago just to find a quick example. Here's one right hours ago, an illegal alien arrested for stabbing an American in the back. He was charged with attempted murder to a lesser offense. The feds wanted him, sought a detainer, and then rather than hold him for your aid, he was released back into the streets of Maryland. That is not an unusual action from local law enforcement, is it, Mr. Lyons?
No, sir. That's what we face every day.
So we've heard the Democrats complain that we're not getting the worst of the worst, but their sanctuary jurisdictions that control roughly 40% of this country's population actively release sex predators, drug dealers, violent offenders, rather than hand them over to you. And these are people who are already in custody. Am I correct, Mr. Lyons?
Yes, sir. The individuals were already deemed a public safety threat to law enforcement.
And then when they get a federal detainer, they will release them on the street rather than turn them over for deportation. Disgusting. Mr. Scott, I want to talk to you briefly. I'm running out of time. How many cities does your agency operate?
We operate nationwide.
Why is it that much tension in Minneapolis, St. Paul right now?
Because agitators are actively trying to stop law enforcement action. You wouldn't even have any idea most of these arrests were taking place.
To the country, local law enforcement assists your efforts to bring legal structure to these lawless areas. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And when obtained, you can do your job peacefully, correct?
Correct. We've ever asked is for law enforcement to do their job, not necessarily.
St. Paul, local law enforcement in some cases have been prohibited from maintaining order so you can do your job. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Time is
I yield back.
expired.
Thank you.
I now recognize a gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Walkinshaw, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your opening statement referenced the importance of protecting children. To hear your commitment to that. I want to focus on President Trump's mass deportation policies that the experts say harms children. Child detention. In this administration, under your watch, nearly 4,000 children. In 1,000 of them have been held long, court-ordered 20-day limit. Recently, ProPublica handwritten letters and drawings from children detained by ICE. These are letters from children describing what it feels like and what it does to them when the government locks them up. This is Ariana. She's 14 years old, detained for 45 days. of this center, all I feel is sadness and mostly depression. This is Mia, 7 years old. I don't want to be in this place. I want to go to my school. This is Scarlett, 6 years old. I feel very bored and overwhelmed because I am locked up. Abby, 14 years old. I feel so much sadness and depression of not being able to leave. This is Maria, 9 years old. Me and Dilly, happy. Please get me out of here. This is a 12, going to the doctor, and the only thing, they drink more water. The water here is what makes people sick. And this one got me, Mr. Lyons, because this is a 5-year-old. My son's 5. He can't write, but he can communicate through drawings like this. This is a picture of Luis Annie's family. And you might be able to see that none of the faces are smiling. Child detention is not required by law. You know that. It's not the only option, and it's not effective. Community-based alternatives can ensure compliance with proceedings without traumatizing these children. Yet, you continue to detain and hold children for weeks or months, depriving them of school, stability, sick, and confused. And one of the key reasons for your mass detention, including the detention of Liam and his father, is to pressure people to give up their legal opportunity ways to remaining in the United States. Liam's father with the rules, following the legal process with a valid claim. Let me be clear. No child, not Gabby, or any of these children should be used as in Stephen Miller's sick and twisted Great Replacement agenda. Mr. Lyons, in 2025, the British Journal of Psychiatry analyzed all of the data on the impact of immigration detention on children's health. Have you read that study and analysis?
No, sir, I haven't.
You are not familiar with that literature.
No, sir.
You could tell me, I'm sure, chapter and verse on the tactic equipment that your agents use, military-style equipment across the country in American cities, but you don't know anything about the literature policies on children. You haven't read it.
No, sir.
The Flores Agreement, I'm sure you know, sets a 20-day on detaining children. You and the Trump administration are trying to terminate that agreement. How long would you like to hold children? 20 days, 40 days, 60 days, 100 days? What's the right number, Mr.
So we wouldn't like to hold any children. We would like to remove that family unit together safely and humanely and as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Since you have literature, let me tell you what it says. Detention of children, no period, not 20, 40, 70 days that you're holding children can be deemed safe. All children has adverse impacts and is profoundly detrimental. Your policies are profoundly detrimental to children. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Fong, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for those who are here testifying. I want to thank you to you and your teams and your personnel for what you do. Commissioner Scott, you mentioned in your testimony, national security cannot exist without effective border. Couldn't agree more. Everyone on your teams are doing tremendous work, difficult conditions, and I want to thank you all. I ask and dive in a little deeper as a Californian on the dangers and the concentratory policies. Director Lyons, I was in the state legislature in 2017 when policies were put in California. I opposed SB 54 at the time, and everything has proven to be true. It was was outlined on ICE and Border Patrol agents was information and access. Agents would be conducting higher risk enforcement operations, and that there would be operational constraints when it comes to limiting cooperation between state and local government. I wanted to get your perspective, Director Lyons, and I'll do Commissioner Scott as well. Can you give specifics on how state policies impact your operations in real time compared to non-sanctuary operations?
I'll refer back to what we talked about earlier, and that when state or local county agencies don't cooperate with immigration customs enforcement, it forces us to go back out to the community, which we don't want to do. It also increases our assets we have to put towards that arrest. Like I said earlier, I would much rather send 1 or 2 agents or officers to make that arrest in a safe, secure, rather than being out in the street. It's safer for everyone involved.
And before I go to you, Commissioner Scott, and answer, I just want to know, in California, and I think it was just reported a couple of days ago, there were currently 33,179 illegal aliens in the custody of California jurisdictions with active detainers. Crimes of these aliens include 399 homicides, 3,315 assaults, 3,171 burglaries, 1,000 robberies, 8,380 dangerous drug offenses, 184 weapon offenses, and 1,293 predatory offenses. These are the real-world consequences, isn't that right, Commissioner Scott? When we don't have cooperation, they're released into the community.
Those are exactly the consequences. And I would just add, California specific, they went above and beyond everybody else. I mean, in a negative way. They prohibited state and locals, when they saw a crime taking place in front of them, from sharing that information with us. San Diego, for example, right after that law was in, a highway patrol pulled over a U-Haul van, and it was a smuggling event, probably a human trafficking event. A Border Patrol agent just happened to roll up on it and found it, but that highway patrol was disciplined, actually investigated internally, and that sent a chilling effect across the entire state of California, that not only can you not actively help us, you couldn't even pass information to us in a normal course of duties. Border security law enforcement's a team sport. We need to be together, not against each other.
Now, can you explain what happened, and I think you alluded to it, but what would have happened prior to that if there was local and state coordination with federal law enforcement?
On a daily basis, especially along the southwest border, and let's not forget, and the coast, because we have boats coming in. When a state or local agency would see illegal activity that they could take action on, and then they saw a federal crime, they would it happened all the time, and that completely ceased to exist when SB 54 was passed.
And these crimes, of course, as you mentioned before, if you go into specifics, I mean, this is trafficking, both humans and drugs. This is rape, assaults. I mean, anything. You're telling me that if any of those crimes occurred, if right now in California, if someone witnessed it, if a state law enforcement or local law enforcement witnessed these crimes being committed, they could not notify you.
Felony exceptions, but in most cases, you don't know until you start asking if it's just a smuggling event or a human trafficking event. Until you actually trunk the vehicle or the back of the car, you don't know what there, if it's people or something else. It put a chilling effect, the actual written language, on any kind of cooperation in the state.
Well, I want to thank you for that. Yes, there were some, it comes to felonies, but someone who lives in California was there for the discussion and debate. Everything we wore came to sanctuary state policies and the consequences to our community, consequences to public safety, they have come true. And that added an enforcement, and we need to undo those policies. So I want to thank you all for your leadership and testimony and your work. Thank you, and Mr. Chairman, now you back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes of questions.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And to our witnesses, thank you for being here. What we've heard today and seen play out in the streets of this nation for the past year, straight out of administration's fascist playbook. Cheat, murder, lie about it, practice the art of mass distraction. The American people are not happy about this. Administration's officials are sitting before us. 2 people are dead. I understand that there's an investigation and you cannot go into the details about that. But there certainly appears to be no shame on the part of these officials who've undoubtedly watched some of your office themselves in ways that I know you don't condone, not as law-abiding people, right? So I got to give you the, and I can't understand why you show no shame, no contrition, no remorse for the human lives that have been lost, or for the trampling of the Constitution and the tearing apart of the moral fiber of our nation.